I guess we should get into this movie.
Mm.
I feel like I led you on because the reason why I think this was the wrong day for me to watch this was because it was much more effective than probably any other day it would be
Uh-huh.
because it has literally been night for probably about 24 hours now.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah, that's right.
so I went to bed last night. Well, so I came home from work, and I work in a basement, so that
Uh-huh.
doesn't necessarily help. But I came home from work and it was dark. I woke up at 5 a.m. and it was dark,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to work and it was at 7 and it was still dark. I went out for my first break at like 9:30 and it was still dark, and then I
Oh
realized
my
that today was
Lord.
just the sun was never going to rise and it was just going to be night today. The street lamps literally didn't turn off, and it it felt like so
Oh
like
my God.
I'm going actually a little bit batshit right now, because I feel like I've been in the same night for probably a whole day at this
Wow.
point. So um,
Wow.
that
See,
that's
over
kind of
here, it's only been in Arroyo. It was like, it looked like a nice sepia toned photograph. Like that was about as bad as it was. It's kind of
right,
yellowy and it
right,
looked
right.
kind of nice. But then my brother's sending me pictures and I was like, it just looked like Blade Runner where he's in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I mean,
uh,
it literally. Well, I mean, I wish it looked like that. It was probably like that for an hour when I was sitting outside smoking a cigar, contemplating how I should kill myself. Um, so I mean, it probably looked more like that at like 5 o'clock, and then I sat down in my yellow room and
hmm.
watched this movie about how you don't actually have a grasp of time and everything's slipping in front of you.
Wow. Yeah, I felt
So
I watched it a little bit earlier than you did, and I felt bad. Like I felt like, oh, this is I'm sorry, I'm making Cameron watch this movie.
mm.
I wish we'd done King of Staten Island. Okay, well, since this is a podcast and I actually do want to try to do this, I think we should try and be a little professional and just briefly introduce the movie. This is
Yes,
the
yes,
film
yes.
I'm thinking of ending things. It's on Netflix. It is the new film by Charlie Kaufman, who I think first became famous in movies for, was Being John Malkovich his first movie? He did a number of movies as a screenwriter.
I think he directed Malkovich first.
No. He wrote Malkovich. Spike Jonze did Malkovich.
Oh yes, you're right.
Yeah.
What did he direct? What was his first?
His first movie, yeah, no, he started as a writer. His first movie was Synecdoche, New York. That was
Synecdoche. Yeah,
2008.
you're right.
And but he had a number of movies as a writer that were pretty acclaimed, including two, I think, masterpieces, Being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which I think is the only one you've seen by him, right?
No, I've seen Being John Malkovich adaptation.
Wait, you have seen Being John Malkovich?
Sorry. No. Yeah, you're right. I've just seen Eternal Sunshine and adaptation.
Okay.
And then now I'm thinking of ending things.
Adaptation,
So that's 3.
I felt pretty, like, I thought it was pretty good, but that was years ago. I need to revisit it. It's probably
I
the
think
Spike
it's
Jonze movie left the least impression on me, I would say.
I agree. I mean, I don't know. Just considering the other two, but
the guy's got a great catalog. Yeah.
No.
But I think Eternal Sunshine is probably a mutual favorite of ours, right?
I think
me.
it's like maybe my number 3 of all time.
Oh, really?
Something like that. But it's in my top 5, I would say. So,
wow. Well, it's definitely some pretty high on my list, and Being John Malkovich is as well. And I have seen the other 2 movies that Kaufman directed, which are Synecdoche, New York, and then that movie Anomalisa, which is like a stop motion animation movie, which David Thewlis also plays the lead in that movie, and everyone in the movie is played by everyone in the world has the same voice. It's the voice of Tom Noonan, who I don't know if you know who that is, but everyone sounds exactly the same, and it's a great performance by Noonan because he he doesn't change the pitch of his voice, but he
Right.
evokes like what a woman sounds like, what a man sounds like, what a child sounds like. It's very interesting. And then he meets a woman who sounds different. And it's Jennifer Jason Leigh, and I think one of the greatest vocal performances of all time, really. And so this is his third movie. His Synecdoche, New York. I saw a long time ago, and I think I watched it on my telephone. So it's very
so how
hazy.
much can you really?
Well, I can't tell you that I remember thinking it was like one of the most like depressing films I'd ever seen.
Right.
And like just amazingly, Philip Seymour Hoffman is the lead in that, and he plays this playwright who's basically trying to write this play that is getting larger and larger in scale as it tries to encompass all of life itself. And I can't even try to describe it because I just sound like an idiot. But yeah, that one, it didn't have the same impression as those other movies that he wrote, but I remember it being very just pretty devastating movie. And then Anomalisa, I remember that with that movie, I thought it was like absolutely great. This is like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then it like ended, and I was like, oh, that's it, you know? And I don't even know if it was a short movie or not, but it felt like it was like 2 acts of a fantastic movie, and then that was it. That was my impression of it.
It is a short movie. It's 90 minutes.
Yeah, but that's not like insane, you know, like it's not insane. And I don't know why I thought this. I mean, I haven't seen it since. But the all the stuff with the main character and the Jennifer Jason Leigh character was just wonderful. And in some ways, I think it's probably the most. Gee, is that the most conventional movie he's made? I mean, I don't know. It feels like it was the one with the least, like, where you watch it and are confused, you know.
That he directed,
of the ones he's directed. Of the ones he's directed, I would say the ones that he's written, at least like Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine, are very surreal, but I feel like they're
understandable.
They're more accessible than this new movie, at least.
Definitely.
And Synecdoche.
And to be honest, I would say adaptation is very straightforward as far as it's like what actually happens is happening. You know what I mean? Like right. It's very straightforward as far as how it portrays things. And that's, I would say that's part of the maybe charm of that movie is like yes, it's about Charlie Kaufman, and there's kind of a, you know, there's a little bit of navel gazing in that, definitely.
Sure.
But it's also like, especially the third act, which I think is like really hilarious and fun, where it kind of just devolves into the movie that he never wanted it to become, you know. Like I think that's just really hilarious.
It was so long ago, I just read that description of the ending now. I was like, oh, that's what it's about. Like I completely forgot about that. And that's actually very funny.
I would go back and revisit it because I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it's like I think that might be his most straightforward movie, actually. Just because it's about him trying to write a script, you know, and not being able to. So I don't think it's that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm.
No, I'm sure I would trust
dumb.
your opinion.
Maybe I'm dumb or something, but I don't think it's that like incomprehensible, I guess.
Right.
Like I think the movie that we're talking about, I'm thinking of Ending Things. I don't want to say it's incomprehensible, but I think it is in some ways. I think if you understand what it's going for, it's not. You can definitely piece things together.
Right.
But it is very experimental, shall we say.
Yes, and more as it goes along. Well, again, for the sake of sstructure and the sake of not spoiling things, let's give our overall impressions, and then we'll just get into the spoilers and whatnot.
Okay.
Though I'm not sure if is this movie even spoilable. I mean, it's almost like
No?
it would defy the point. But we'll talk about the movie more generally. What did you think about the movie? Just your impressions, Cameron.
I loved it. I thought it was great. And
Oh, good. Oh, well, that's good at least.
And I'm worried that you think that I would like this movie because you know too much about me, I guess.
Well, but I liked it too. I mean, I'm not against it. I just am a little bit like reticent about certain things.
Yeah. No, I thought this was like it was hard to win me over in the beginning. And then
oh really?
Probably for the first like maybe 30 minutes, I guess I was a little bit like hesitant. And then I think maybe actually right when they got to the house and they started looking around, they do a tour of the barn, and then he talks about the pigs. I think that's about the moment that I was like, all right, I'm in. Like wherever this movie is gonna take me, I'm going.
They made me laugh, which is funny. I mean, it was it's nightmarish, but I think we know what it is. It's Plemons. Like Plemons is just
he's so creepy. Just as a
he's
person.
creepy, but he's just like so bland and banal, like in the way he says things. And this is like everything he's in. Like in Breaking Bad, it's also like that, where he's just like. I mean, I think the hardest I laughed, not only in this movie, but maybe all year, is when they're just like waiting for the parents to come downstairs, and he's looking up the stairs, and he's saying, "Upstairs are bedrooms," I don't know, just the utter banality and obviousness of that was just hilarious to me. Oh, gee, where to start about this? Well, the interesting thing I was going to say was that I felt maybe the opposite, or at least differently, in that I thought the first 30 minutes of this movie were like phenomenal. And as it went on, there were things about it that lost me, or there are things about it that I became less and less like. I almost don't know how to put it. Like I don't buy it, or that's dumb, or I don't know. I mean, again, it's like, is this just the case of me being a Philistine and I don't get things, or is it just a case of that he doesn't have? Because I was thinking about it in contrast to other people who make movies that are in the like surreal, or movies that are not, that don't follow a conventional narrative, that don't follow a typical roadmap, that go their own way in strange ways. And thinking about what I like for me, I was thinking of like, I mean, obviously the person to go to for this sort of thing is like David Lynch, right? Particularly like Mulholland Drive, obviously sort of the reality of that movie phrase as it goes along. I was actually thinking a lot about Annihilation as I was watching it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the way that movie, and then by the end, it's just pure surreal imagery. Yeah, exactly. And like what works about those. I don't even know if I know for sure what it is about those. What do you know? I mean, can you articulate? But maybe
I don't think.
But for you liked
possible.
it, so
well, I don't think it's possible to articulate why it works in those movies. I guess. I think that's part of the reason why experimental film is so vague and also can be so interesting, I guess. I think I actually think Annihilation is a better example of this than a David Lynch movie. In some ways, because I think a David Lynch movie is almost too mysterious. It's too much of an enigma. There's like too much to unlock to it. you know who did a better, not a better David Lynch or whatever, but like someone who tried to play off of that feeling was, what was that movie we watched? Uh,
Under the Silver
um,
Lake.
Under the Silver Lake. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that movie I think is more evocative of someone like David Lynch than this movie, because
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's much more, I don't want to say it's much more random, but it's also like the meaning. I think the meaning in this movie is very clear. It's very on the surface.
It's interesting. I felt, again, I feel maybe the opposite, that I to me, Under the Silver Lake was very, I was just watching it and I was like, oh no, this makes sense to me as it's, getting more and more insane. And this, to me, it became more and more, I guess, vague, or I was not like watching it and going, I have a clear understanding of it. Geez, I mean, I think I'm mostly struggling just because I don't want to like just outright mention how the thing ends and whatever the final 20 minutes of the movie. Is there anything else just generally?
Well, I would say the main thing that this movie is really contemplating is that sense of like temporal loss, like time slipping away from you, not being in your. It's almost like I think some of the I don't know, I don't want to say most compelling, but some of the more interesting moments in the house were with the dad when he's like completely slipping and losing his mind. He's got Alzheimer's, and he's talking about, oh, this is Jake's old room, blah, blah, blah. I have to label things, oh, here's your what was it called your night count, so like I think some of those, that was really what I mean. Those were the more obvious points that I'm trying to point out. It's like it's that kind of meaning and that kind of thematic drive is much more on the surface than like a David Lynch movie. You know what I mean? Like the idea that the whole movie is really about time and time slipping away from you, and not being able to disentangle if this is happening in one night or if this is happening over your lifetime. Right. That's kind of the. And maybe this is just my headspace too, because I've been in this.
It's valid. I think definitely
awakened nightmare for 36 hours or whatever. But but like so like it's that's the sense of sort of the loss, maybe the loss of your youth and the loss of time. And I guess the spoilery territory, which we won't go towards, is much more convoluted, but I think I kind of have an understanding of that as well.
Okay.
And we'll get into that in a bit.
To just close off, I mean, I think just what we should say generally to the audience, and when audience I use in the singular because it's really one person. How's it going? How are you, Nancy? Is just that, I mean, it sounds like you really like this movie, and I did as well. And I think despite whatever is my limited either understanding or also just like, I don't know, sometimes I learn more and more what something's about, or like either the themes of it or what's really happening. And then I kind of just go, okay, does this make it more interesting to me? Like, I'm not really sure. I mean, I guess I'll decide by the end of this discussion. But I enjoyed the act of watching this movie. I enjoyed just the experience of watching it and going, oh, wow. It was never frustrating to me. It was not like you're watching ideas expressed in a way like by like Godard or someone where you just go like, yeah, who cares? It's to me, it was always compelling and always had this really interesting and very specific feeling of dread and like unsettling quality. Again, it's like, as a recommendation, this is not really going very far, but I would say if you are willing to watch something that is not going to be paint by numbers, and also if you're willing to watch something that maybe is not going to make you like feel really good. I know some people don't like. Some people, in bad times they enjoy watching, the 10-hour Vietnam. That's what my friend who had the coronavirus said. She enjoyed watching the Vietnam Ken Burns documentaries.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's not 10 hours; it's like 40 hours.
Oh wow! Okay.
It's like an insane, huge documentary.
But I know some people are of the feeling that in bad times you want to watch something that makes you feel good, and this is not it. I really sort of it amuses me to think of all the Netflix users who may have stumbled upon this movie.
I know, yeah.
Because the thing about Netflix is it's this weirdly kind of democratic thing where when there's a big movie out, people will just watch it in a way they wouldn't. If this came out in theaters, it would be all the Charlie Kaufman fans, who would be going to see it. Maybe
it would probably bomb too, to be honest.
It probably would, yeah. A few Jesse Plemons fanatics who would be in the theater, but that's it, And but people watching this on Netflix who are just looking to see. They saw Wild Rose and they want to see what Jesse Buckley's career is up to. They're just like, what the fuck?
This is honestly. This is a movie that we would see at like a tiny little theater. Maybe that one, the Cine Arts in
like the where we saw Hidden Life. Or,
yes. We'd
or the Draft House.
Like
yeah, I would have loved to see this in the theater because
it would be
as minimal as it is. It's only like 4 characters really. I feel it had a great sense of atmosphere to it, and
oh, absolutely,
and the concentration of seeing it in the theater. That's the big thing. I'm watching it. I'm eating pita chips. I'm like eating carrots. And it's like, wow, this is like utterly disrespectful. But yeah, it's too bad that obviously that's not happening these days. No. All right. Well, I think we can comfortably move into spoiler.
I would honestly, I would say the best thing to do with this movie is to just go in blind, to be honest. Like,
yes, and that's how I did actually. I actually did not see.
Me too. I mean, I didn't know what this was, so I mean, I knew it was a Kaufman movie, and it would be weird. So
I did hear it was about aging and time and that sort of thing just through Twitter, but I knew very little about it, and that was fun, that experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready to just break the whole thing open?
Yeah, let's dive into it. What did you think about the dance number and stage play?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. No, I love that sort of shit, man. And maybe I'm just, a simple man, but I'm surprised that there hasn't been like more ballet in film or like, I mean, I guess just silent movie storytelling in general is pretty much dead, but I love that. I mean, it's a pretty small part of this movie, but there are definitely parts in the movie where something utterly strange and unexpected would happen, and I'd go, all right, and that would happen. That happened, and I was like, oh, wonderful, how lovely. I mean, why? Who knows? But I liked it. So you were not crazy about the first drive and all that sort of stuff? That goes on a long time.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't know. Maybe that's one of the reasons. Was I just. I don't want to. It's a little bit redundant, I guess. Is like it starts to like it throws you into her before you know her. Like I think the end drive is much more interesting than the beginning drive, which is I mean it's just as long and as tedious of a drive, but I found it much more engaging. And I guess part of the reason is that you're expected to learn about her in the first drive, but I don't know, everything that she was saying and doing made me just really not want to like her, I guess. You know what I mean? Like
in the first drive?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, I didn't think it was. I don't know if it felt like I made her unlikable. It just was. I thought it was great because it was, other than maybe a movie called Brad Status, where the entire movie is like Ben Stiller narrating his thoughts. It's actually kind of a wonderful movie. It was one of the best portrayals I've ever seen of like the two-sided quality of when you're just having a conversation or when you're with another person, of your thoughts, and then what you're actually saying, and the things you're holding back, and then the things that you're
Right.
the front she's putting up. I mean, I think we can just say it. Buckley is wonderful in the movie.
Yeah.
And that long sequence in the car, to me, it really was a very astutely observed portrayal of the state of this relationship, where it was not like a disastrous relationship by any point, but it was just something that's very stagnant and not going anywhere, and just kind of the things they're talking about. You don't get the sense that they're like really enjoying each other's company. They're kind of just filling the time. And also it's like, it was like the volatility of her thoughts was interesting too, because her thoughts about him, well, also like she'd have thoughts and then he'd interrupt them, or it would seem like I didn't read it like he was reading the thoughts, but maybe, and was I just missing that he was, so I read that somewhere. Maybe this was a mistake to read stuff, but
No,
I thought he was just saying, I thought he was just talking about stuff, and there was no connection of what he was saying to her thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's room to interpret this movie. Well, because if you consider, he kind of always is stepping in on her like next actions, or her next thoughts, what I mean? Like basically the entire movie, she's about to ask a question and he kind of diverts in a different direction, so yeah, so I guess in that way you could say it's possible that he's reading her thoughts. I think
I didn't think that at all. That's just something I read, so it's probably not.
I don't think that's, well, that's not what I was getting from it either. But I think the more interesting or I don't know about more interesting, but the more obvious reading, I guess, is that she's not real. That it's really just him, and he's kind of been alone this whole time. And I think actually not only the play reinforces that, but the scene where she talked to the janitor and talks about how she never even really met him, blah blah blah. Yeah, like that to me kind of more reinforced that she wasn't ever really there.
Yeah.
So
that's that's very interesting. I think it's a book. I don't know if it's a novel, or I think it's a novel, but whatever the source of the movie is, it explicitly says this. It explicitly says that the girl, who's not named ever, is an invention.
Well, and she has different names, and
it makes sense because they call her Lucia and Luisa and all these different things, and
Amy at one point.
Yeah, and yeah. What I was, I didn't pick up on this. I'm just a simpleton, and I guess I really am dumb here, because it sounds like you figured this out for yourself, and I'm watching this whole thing because I don't. But I'm not. I rarely watch anything with a eye towards the interpretation, or what's either the interpretation or what is actually happening here.
Right.
Which is always what people. That's why they look up the ending explained videos on YouTube, and I generally don't watch those, because I just sort of enjoy the pure experience of being confused or whatever.
I mean, I think for me it was pretty clear that he was the janitor, and that this was all his perspective. And in fact, it wasn't just clear; it was like extremely clear in the very beginling that he was supposed to be the janitor.
Yes, I did pick up on this.
I think that's the editing of it, I guess.
Well, especially the musical sequence where he listens to the thing on the radio, which is beautifully done, by the way. That whole the way he threads the music through both timelines,
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It was wonderful. That was the part where I sort of went, okay, this is memories. The one thing that confused me, which is a weird thing, is I saw a still of the last shot of the movie. That's another thing I did see. Is somehow on Twitter, just randomly, I saw the shot where he fades into the sky at the end of the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
So, and it's Plemons in old age
In
makeup,
old
or
makeup.
at least what I could
Terrible
see
old
was
makeup. Yeah.
old age makeup in that on Twitter. So that the fact that the janitor was a different guy, that threw me off a little bit, but it's the movie seemed very explicit in telling you this, and yes, I did pick up on that aspect of it.
But I think that I don't know. I don't think it's that hidden. I don't think the movie's really hiding the ball in
the janitor part or the girl?
that with a girl, because remember he keeps talking about um she keeps saying I want to go home, and he keeps saying back to the ranch house, and so it's like he's not disentangled from her, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like and she says this is a picture of me, blah blah blah, like that. I don't know, all of those things led me to kind of understand that like they're at the very least they're the same person, and
right
like they're and so with the added fact that it ends with him fading into the sky and talking about he needs to get out and find a woman and blah blah blah, and the fact that you don't see anything of her life and it's all him and his parents and whatnot, like it seems like it's from his perspective, I guess.
Right.
And she, I don't want to say she, well, like she seems like an outgrowth of that perspective. If that makes sense.
It does. I mean, everything you're saying, I'm going, yeah, of course. I'm like slapping my head here, like not understanding why I didn't understand this. I don't even know what. Like now, I'm like just I'm questioning what I thought the whole time watching this movie. Then but also I'm questioning do I get more out of it by then going, oh, okay, then it's explained that she doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
trying to think. Are we approaching this the wrong way? Is actually kind of what I'm thinking.
I think so.
Because it's like, yeah, we could explain it in this way. Like this is real. This is not.
Frankly, I don't care about that.
We could parse through the whole movie thinking about.
I think
this.
you don't care about that either. The sort of reality versus what's it called, the angle of it. I think, and actually, not just we don't care about that. I don't think Kaufman cares about that really. I think maybe it sounds like it was part of the book's sort of lore, and it was part of the book, what made the book effective. But I don't think he is interested in that necessarily.
Yeah.
Although he does really lace it in like everywhere in the movie. So maybe that's not true.
He does. But the way when I was watching it, I don't know. I think because I didn't know anything about it, I was sort of just watching it as I was happy to watch a movie about a strained relationship. And, it was, what it remember me also a little bit, not the movie itself, but the experience was when I saw Midsummer the first time, where I really enjoyed just the relationship aspect of it. And I was enjoying just the kind of like watching a strained relationship.
Yeah.
And in some ways this might have been more interesting because it was strained in a less obvious way. Like it was not as bad. It was just kind of like
dull.
Yeah, exactly. Dull. So that's what I was getting out of that first scene in the car.
Yeah.
And
well, and I would say I would say it's broken into maybe halves in that sense. In that the first half is very much about the first half up until they leave, I guess, the house, is very much about the almost like decay of life, the decay of relationships, and the fact that it doesn't really matter like it's a it's a very depressing movie thematically. I'll say, but like it's very much about the fact that it doesn't really matter who you are in the meantime. It
Yeah, no,
like
I know.
it genuinely it won't matter in 30 and 50 years who you
Right.
are in the meantime, and so like that's why she's thinking of ending it, of ending things is because she's caught in this sense of um like wistfulness, a sense of um almost nihilism of, well, the fact that everything's going to wither, everything's going to eventually we'll all be maggot ridden pigs in a barn one
Oh
day,
my.
like
Yeah. No. It's true though. No, it's exactly what I was thinking in that scene at the house when everything started to kind of um, shift around in terms of
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Was I was going, okay, this is the first part where the movie has gone like, um, I think up till when the father comes in elderly, you could read almost everything as pretty literal, but then you're kind of like,
yeah.
okay, we're in the zone of unreality here. Other than I guess the pig on the billboard speaking to her, and one very
Mm.
chilling shot that is not. I don't really know what it is, but I just remember thinking like, wow, that's interesting. Where they're in the car and he's talking, and then she looks out the window past him as the camera is going past. Did you notice that?
I don't know that I did.
It might have been a very small thing, but it was just a
Yeah.
brief moment where she just looked at the camera and
Oh
uh,
yes, she looks into the camera. Yeah.
it's weird, and I don't know what to make of it.
She looks into
As
the
with
camera when she's reciting her poetry too.
yes, that's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Um, which stylistically makes a little bit more sense, but this weird
Yes.
throwaway thing was just kind of strange. But not in a bad way. I was just going, oh wow.
And she's looking into the camera while sort of slightly smiling, and then the next cut is her crying at the window.
Right, and
And
she's
so
continuing to recite the poem.
yeah, yeah. And so there's sort of another that might be the first actual like implementation actually of um this sort of break from reality, I guess, or
Right,
this slight shift from reality.
right.
Um and then yeah, and then could I think honestly, no. We're missing things too, because things start to get weird pretty much um, as soon as they roll up to the house, because Toni Collette, who is just fantastic in this movie as
Yeah,
always,
she's hilarious.
she's great. I love
Uh,
her.
yeah.
Um, Almost like again, uh, you know how in Hereditary you said she was so good that she was almost um too over the top. You know what I mean? Like she was
Oh, I
almost
think
like
she's more over the top in
bordering.
this movie. In
Definitely,
Hereditary, I think
definitely.
it's like perfect. And
Yeah.
this, if it was like a little bit almost cartoony, but still, she's delightful to watch. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
she's great.
yeah.
What were we gonna say? That
So
she's
but
waving in the window.
as soon as they roll up, she's waving in the window for just like an unreasonable amount of time. And then he's like, "Oh no, it's fine. We don't have to we don't have to meet them yet. We'll go walk around basically." And
Right.
and that's another moment of just like a weird break. And
Mm-hmm.
then once they go inside, she notices the door to the basement, um, and then the dog comes in, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
dog shakes again for an unreasonable amount of time.
Yeah,
Um,
you never see the dog's face still, which is kind of
Yeah, it's very
eerie.
creepy. Actually,
Yeah.
it's very creepy.
Yeah.
Actually, all of the whole sequence with the dog, or I guess those two parts, was very disturbing to me. Actually, it might have been the most disturbing thing in the movie.
Yeah.
um, the
Yeah.
dog shaking, and then she gets up in the second time that she pets the dog, when they're sort of like approaching, trying to leave for the first time.
Mm-hmm,
Um, and you never see the dog, and she gets up and she's petting nothing.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it gave me chills on it, honestly. It creeped me out a lot. And then she
Gee,
goes
did I miss the
upstairs.
petting nothing? And that's weird. Now I'm like curious.
She's not petting nothing, but she gets up as if she were petting a dog, and there's nothing there.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
and you hear that. I think that's when you hear the chains. He's like, I have chains, it's fine. And then you hear the chains, and it's supposed to be the dog.
Is that the part where she goes to the window and then she turns around and everyone's gone?
Maybe, I don't know. All this whole movie is blurring together for me.
I know,
to be honest,
and you just saw it. Yeah, that part freaked me out where everyone like disappeared. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. Well, and then I think it is the same part. Because then she goes upstairs and she's in Jake's childhood bedroom, as it's as it's labeled.
Yeah.
And then the dog is in the urn.
Right. Of course.
The
Yeah.
ashes of the dog are in the
Right.
urn.
Yeah. I guess that's the point where you realize the time passing.
That deeply unsettled me. I was very disturbed by that point.
And that was the thing I was going to mention. It was in the when you were talking about the looking at the what would you say, the why am I not missing the word here, temporality of things.
Yeah.
I was struck watching that whole sequence where it's sort of like oscillating back and forth through time, depending on what room she goes in. And then the mother is young, and then she's hunched in her chair,
old, and then she's dying.
Yeah, and I have to say that I had almost a thought like that the other day, where I was watching my grandmother doing a Zoom call with my cousin's children, who are, well, the youngest was born this year. I guess it's probably the only person I know who's born in the 20s. And I was thinking about the child. I was looking at this child, and I was thinking about, oh, one day this child is going to be elderly like my grandma. I was like, such a strange thought to have. It was reminding me of that scene in Before Midnight, actually, where Ethan Hawke has a pretentious idea for a book that's about a person who everything they look at, they think about it 100,000 years from now, and it just drives the person into absolute despair.
And it's all just an exploded sun. that's the only thing he can think of.
Yeah, no, I mean it's that's what I got out of that scene, rather than trying to go, oh, what's happening? What's causing this time thing?
Exactly.
That's the feeling I got from it.
No, I didn't. That's kind of where I didn't care really what was happening plot wise, I guess. And I think that's kind of the idea, is you're supposed to stop caring what's plot wise. Everything kind of grinds to a halt, and she's stuck basically in this farmhouse forever, at this dinner forever, seeing old, his parents, and when I was first seeing it, I interpreted it as or like up to that point I was interpreting it as she's seeing almost the passing of time with him, right? She's seeing the expression of, she's like looking at all these future events and being like, oh my god, like this like this is my life now. I'm here, in winter, for every winter from now, taking care of his Alzheimer's dad and his bedridden mother and blah blah blah, like that. That's what I saw it as, is the weight of time like crushing on her almost. And
I think that's the one, this is where the movie gets closest to the horror movie label. That was another thing, because I watched it, and then they get to the part with the parents who are started to creep me out, And then that was the point where I remembered that whatever listing was horror of the movie. And I said, "Oh no!" And I'm so dumb. I was like, I was thinking about Get Out. Like I thought they're trying to harvest her body or something like that. Which Mick made an interesting point in his review about the parents that they're they're a little bit like obviously unreal and like a little bit over the top in their creepiness, and how in Get Out they're creepy, but they're not. You don't ever question like the validity of them as characters, Which Mick hated the movie, by the way. He panned it.
But you're kind of supposed to feel the unrealness of the characters. Like they're not really supposed to be.
It was no detriment. It was no detriment to me. I mean, I was completely enjoying it and enjoying being, just. I mean, I thought David Thewlis also was just hysterical. I mean, of course.
Oh, he's so funny. I love him. Yeah.
He's probably, for us, we always think of him as Professor Lupin. And it's weird because basically every other movie he plays like a weirdo or a creep or something. But of course, I have a very warm feeling to him because of Harry Potter,
right.
Which for him is probably just a paycheck. But he's wonderful in that movie, and in this, it's not even that he was like incredibly creepy, but I just thought he was hilarious, like his interpretation of art, and his looking at pictures, and his understanding that he could only think of the emotion of a painting if it had a person in it having the emotion. Like, that was just great. I loved all the stuff with him and that wonderfully uncomfortable dinner scene. And Clem is just sitting there in the corner looking like he's going to explode. Like, to me, all of that was very, like, again, if this was a conventional movie, that would be a wonderful scene in and of itself, outside of the greater aspirations of this movie. But I still was 100% with it, with all the jumping around where she's going through the house. Like, to me, that's still, and this is why this is difficult. And it's so difficult. I almost am like, God, I feel embarrassed having recording this because I just sound like a Philistine, but I don't. I'm not exactly sure how to articulate why I'm watching the scene where they're going through the house and time is moving in all directions, and it's just getting very strange and surreal. And but I still felt like it worked. But then there were other things as it went on that I went, I don't know. As much as I was entertained by watching it, it was just like when they're in the car, in the second drive home, and they start like at certain points quoting different texts, right?
Yeah.
Including at one point he references Cassavetes' movie Woman Under the Influence, right? Mm-hmm. And then she starts smoking a cigarette.
Yeah,
it's Pauline Kael's review.
Yes.
Which thankfully I think I either read that before it was in the movie, or they have a big shot of a Pauline Kael book and whatever. I put that together. That's Pauline Kael. But again, that doesn't make it good. Like I think a lot of times you watch stuff like this and you understand the reference and you feel smart, but that doesn't make it good. I mean, it's a fascinating
it's a kind
moment.
of funny moment. Yeah.
No, it's very funny, and also his reaction to it. But I'm sort of going,
well, you're the expert. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that leads into my theory, I guess, that she's just a figment of his imagination. She's just a book that he read at one point.
Right. But the other thing is also that they were both, I feel like, reciting these different texts. And or also like platitudes.
She keeps saying he keeps saying you're a physicist or whatever, and he's a physicist too, and you're a painter and he's a painter too, and you're a poet, and he reads all this poetry and whatnot, so like
right.
So like all these things are mirrored in his own life, in his own it's just a reflection of everything that he's consumed. So
right. I mean, when I'm watching it, and again, at this point in the movie, were you picking up? Okay, this lady's not real.
No. Well, actually, the first key was when she pointed out the picture.
Okay.
But only one. If you have only one clue, that doesn't.
This is where I said, "Oh,
necessarily lead.
my get out harvesting a human idea
Right,
is
right.
supported." No, I'm just kidding. But in
the
the scene in
picture
the
was
car, go ahead.
the picture was what kind of like first leaned me towards that, and then that they're going back through the car, and then I kind of had I guess I had the idea that this was like some sort of split personality thing, or that she was like a manifestation
That did cross
of
my mind too.
his personality when they're at the frozen the ice cream place, um because he keeps saying like, oh, I won't talk to these two girls, I'll only talk to the other one, and then he's like, you have to order for me, blah blah blah. And so like and then she orders and it's his same order, and so like that's sort of when I started to put it together. um and I was remembering the flashbacks with the janitor as well. That it was pretty obvious to me that it was Jesse Plemons, and as an old man. And then when they got to the high school, that's kind of when I understood, like, at the very least, it's leading up to him never having left this sort of sad existence. um he's the man in the car watching the or he's the man in the wherever, watching the couple make out in the car. And
Right.
he so like
And
it all
go ahead.
led to the fact that it was just him the whole time,
Right.
and then when he's the janitor and she's hiding from the janitor, and she explains to him, that's kind of when that's really when I put it together, I guess.
Okay. And then
So
and then of him winning the award or whatever, and they're all wearing, I think, intentionally bad makeup.
yeah,
Is his
stage makeup.
It's his delirious fantasy as he dies, basically. Is that what we're
Yeah,
supposed to take? I mean, that's what
yeah, I
I
guess
thought,
so.
at
I
least.
mean, he strips naked in his car, I guess, because he's having some sort of a psychotic break. But at that point, I was very happy with letting it be sort of the impressionistic ending that it needed, in a sense. Like
Right.
I wasn't really gearing to interpret the ending as far as the dancing goes, or as far as the end speech. The only thing that sort of stuck out to my mind, like plot wise, in the end speech was he sings about wanting a finally settling down with a woman, and his mom's on the stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the only thing that I picked up on in that sequence. But either way, I was happy to leave it as just the weird, uh, the impressionistic ending.
Right. I mean, I think there's something to be said for watching this and, like, sort of just absorbing every piece on its own. I mean, I for one, when I watched the 18-hour Twin Peaks series that David Lynch did, that was how I enjoyed it, because obviously it's not something you can, quote unquote, understand what's happening, and to do so even, I think, is foolhardy. But my enjoyment watching it was just watching individual scenes and just going, wow, this is like a wonderfully crafted, strange thing that David Lynch is doing. And for the most part, I felt the same way about this movie. Like for example, that whole sequence at the whatever, the place where they get ice cream was to me just like wonderfully. It almost reminded me of like those like. Am I thinking of the Edward Hopper paintings? I feel like I'm thinking of the Edward Hopper, like the look of it, and the whole just the loneliness of it in the middle of the snowstorm,
Yeah.
and the weirdness of
Strangeness. Yeah.
of that girl with the rash, and of course there's a whole another thing to break down, to quote unquote, of because that girl, the girl at the selling them ice cream was the girl the janitor walks past, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I believe in a shot. And then at one point they're in the car and they're talking, and then it pans back and it's a different actress in the front.
Yeah,
right. And that's the girl from
it's
the
the girl from
inspirational movie.
the movie. Yeah, which is funny because that actor is in The Boys, which I've been watching.
Oh, really?
This past
How is season
past couple
2?
of weeks. Well, it's only the first 3 episodes are
okay.
so far, and they're pretty good. I was kind of thinking, this is total side tangent, but I was kind of thinking the first season of The Boys is very it's very abbreviated. Like it needs season 2 to kind of finish what its arc is.
I see.
In season 1. So
Uh-huh.
I'm happy that it's going where it's going. So.
Oh, okay. I definitely need to check that out. I love that scene with the him watching the movie. Not only just what it sort of evokes, that like this is probably like the best part of his day. He gets to.
Yeah.
And it also was funny because I was imagining that like if I end up as an elderly janitor, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Take advantage of the large space where I can watch a movie, and but also just it was such an exacting parody. Like it almost, I feel like that almost could be watched. If you show that to someone, they would think it's just a real movie. Like it was like that close to me. I don't know. It was a great piece of parody. And then I read about the because the Zemeckis thing feels almost kind of mean. But apparently what that was either his editor or some assistant or something just put directed by Robert Zemeckis in just as a joke or as a placeholder, basically. And Kaufman saw it and just like he fell over laughing. And he asked Zemeckis, and actually, if you watch the end credits, Zemeckis is thanked at the end of the movie.
That's funny.
So I guess it was just a warm joke. Though I mean, it's done with love. It's not. I know Kaufman is kind of a caustic character. I feel like he probably watches just based on watching his movies that he directs. You can imagine him watching most movies and just going like, this is
Contempt.
Sentimental, like he probably watches like $1 Million Baby and he's like too uplifting, like he'd just be like, because I remember the year Anomalisa came out, it was nominated alongside Inside Out for Best Animated Film,
right?
Which of course is kind of silly because I mean it's like the styles and the movies are as different as could be other than that they're animated. They're even the different styles of animation. But I remember being surprised how kind of like harsh he was about the movie, and I was thinking, hey man,
about Inside Out.
Yeah, like he was just like was openly shitting on it in interviews after it won the Oscar. It felt sort of bitter, but also just like he probably watched the movie and thought it was again sentimental claptrap. Yeah. And I'm sitting there just shaking my head, going, Pete Docter is 10 times the director you'll ever be, Charlie Kaufman.
I don't know, because I think to me, Kaufman, even though he's sort of the mind behind things that I truly do identify with, specifically Eternal Sunshine, which I think is just like not only a foundational movie of my own sort of film journey. It's just a very incredibly like it's a movie that's just tattooed on my brain, and so even considering that, and maybe he does almost need Spike Jonze as the sort of taking his edge off of
That
things.
did cross my mind. So, someone in Letterboxd said like he needs a normie to like take his ideas and like make them digestible. Not that
Yeah.
I'd say that Spike Jonze is whatever a normie is,
No,
but
no, no, no.
I know what the
But
sentiment
he's
is. That
heartfelt. I mean,
you need someone else to, and that happens with a lot of writers. You know, there's a lot of no one's coming to mind at the moment, but like Aaron Sorkin, for example.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's
like he's never better
I was,
than with Fincher. You know.
I was absolutely gonna say Sorkin because he and Kaufman, I think, are probably two peas in a pod in that they're both almost like too pretentious to do their own thing. They both almost need someone who can round them out and make them almost like more human, you know?
Right.
Like in some parts of this movie, and I guess that might be just why I didn't connect with the first the first bit of the movie, the first drive. And now that you're mentioning it, there are definitely parts of the first drive that I really enjoyed, and that I thought were really great. But there was almost like a higher than thou feeling to it, almost like a contemptuousness.
Well, definitely. At least a contemptuousness for humanity, if not the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, one and the same, but yeah.
Which is, I mean, I was also thinking about like comparison to like the Coen brothers, who also have kind of a very bleak worldview.
Which I'm not a huge fan of either. So.
Which I know you're not. I would say though in favor of the Coen brothers that they are better dramatists than
definitely,
he is.
Definitely.
I mean, they and also just craftspeople too. I think. I don't know. I enjoyed this movie a lot, but it's like at a certain point, it's impossible. It's really impossible to define the rules. I mean, in some ways for any movie, but especially movies like this, where you go, I can try my best to explain why, the interpretive dancing sequence I liked a lot, and the ending with the on the stage I was like and the quoting Pauline Kael I was like and then the scene with the girl with the rash was like pretty good, like I don't really know why.
What was your least favorite I guess like sequence of it, because you mentioned that there were things that you thought were like
it was definitely the last scene. I definitely
unbelievable thought, or
well, I mean the whole thing. I mean, I don't know what's believable in this movie.
No, I know you mentioned that there was like, I don't know, things that you thought were either stupid or you didn't buy or whatever.
It was more like as the movie went on and like in the last couple of scenes where I felt like it sort of showed his hand that he didn't really. And again, I'm interpreting this outside of the book, but I think that doesn't matter because I feel like these things have to stand on their own. I felt like he didn't really have a place where it was going. Like to me, the first hour of the movie was so strong, maybe even more than that, because I still really liked the second drive
hour
and all
and
that
a half,
stuff.
probably
For a while. I mean, I was really, I would say for the first hour, I was like, this is easily the best film of the year, like hands down. But I felt like you watch certain filmmakers and they put in things in their movies, and this can be for filmmakers who are dramatists and it can be for filmmakers who are surrealists, where it's or somewhere in between, where the different things they're putting into place somehow saying they need to pay off seems very reductive. Like it seems very conventional, like stricken to convention, which I don't want to be and I don't believe in. But I would
Kaufman doesn't either.
Yeah, but I would say like even like something like Mulholland Drive, which is just like insanity basically, in terms of like narrative, right? And in terms of it does not follow rules by any stretch. I still feel when that movie ends, you feel like, oh, this is the place where it was meant to end, and that's a 2.5 hour movie. And that, and that all the different things you see in the movie somehow have a place in terms of the the world he's creating, in terms of the ideas he's playing with. And I think they still have a place in this movie. It's not like things are in this movie that are just like utterly nonsensical or anything. Or maybe so. I don't know. It's definitely. I almost wish I had seen this twice. But I feel like Annihilation. I brought that up because I think that's an example of one where, I actually had a similar feeling the first time I saw it to this, where I felt like it was a great setup and a wonderful, like, just evocative, interesting movie that was beautifully crafted. I mean, we haven't even talked about just the craftsmanship of this movie. I think this movie is really a beautifully made movie.
It's gorgeous.
It's beautifully made, but I felt when I watched Annihilation the first time that I felt like he just sort of like petered out into just kind of like he didn't know where this movie wanted to go, so he just went into the completely weird. But I haven't seen the entire movie straight through, but having watched parts of it again, and I admit actually watching some like analyses of the movie and but more just thinking about it more than anything, you realize that whole thing, where she's dancing with the double, at the end of the movie, it really does like it does. It's not just nonsense, all these things that start happening where Tessa Thompson she turns into flowers, and Jennifer Jason Leigh explodes, and I don't know, all these things somehow have to do with the kind of the ideas that movie is wrestling with about what are the ideas that the movie's wrestling with? How do I explain it? I'm very bad at this sort of thing, I realize. I really...
Well, I don't know. For me, Annihilation is much of the movie is about being unsure of what makes up of you, like what makes you,
Right. No, that's sorry. I'm losing my thought, but yes, that's what that is. It's about these forces, and in terms of metaphor, it's about your relationships and your life, like all these things that you have no control over, that you begin to just absorb into you, and in that movie it literalizes, and by the end with the thing with the double, there's all these sort of things you could read into that about like your own sort of personal self-destruction or that sort of thing. I mean, not just that she literally destroys it, but like the whole thing of like having to resist it, and make peace with it rather than attack it with force.
Fight it. Yeah,
exactly. But with this movie, there were just like things where I don't know what I mean when I say I don't buy it, is I'm going like, is it enough to just say, okay, wow, that's a weird thing that he has a rash and that girl has a rash, and that girl has a weird warning about something, or also B, am I too stupid to understand it, or C, is it just he's throwing these things at you as interesting elements, but they don't really pay off in an interesting way? Because I feel like I love the dancing thing on its own. Like, I just think it's just as an isolated thing, it's delightful. Yeah. But when I watched that, I was feeling like this is kind of the place a filmmaker goes when they don't really have an idea. And I hate to be a purveyor of conventional or by the numbers storytelling where it needs to have a narrative arc or a character. Like, that's not what I mean. It's just, I don't know if you felt the way watching that part, those ending scenes.
But I don't know, because I don't really, because I think I don't know. I can see what you mean in that there's no real good way to end a movie about the literal passing of time being so mindless and blurry that you can't catch up with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's not really a great way to end that movie, right? Like
Right.
how do you end that?
Other than
Which
this, he dies, basically, is the way you would. That's the most
yeah,
literal way.
which he does in a certain sense. I mean, he does um die.
Mhm.
Uh, this, but the I don't know. To me the um there was nothing that could have been said in sort of plot terms or in words that would have really helped the movie finish. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't anything that that was left to say other than
I,
we know what's happening. We know
yes,
what's going to happen.
I think you're right. Though I still think like the whole thing about like the passage of time, that whole conversation where they're all quoting texts and stuff and other things other than that. Does that feed into that theme as much? I mean, I guess this is sort of I'm taking the conversation in a different direction. What I actually well, let's table that for a second and say to just ask you directly, did you when the movie ended that with those last scenes, did you feel like, oh, this is great, or like, oh, this I like this, or were you going like, okay, interesting, but
Well, once
because
they
you know what I mean, right?
I
You've
would say
watched movies where
right.
it goes into the poetic. I mean, I guess probably the best example is The Tree of Life, where
Yeah.
that movie goes in. That's not something that's explainable as in the world of the movie or whatever, but you understand, and it completely
Yeah.
works, right? And you go, wow, this is the right. I would have never thought of this because I'm not Terrence Malick, but this is the right place this movie should end. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the thing I was thinking. But this is that at a certain point I was just going, this could end if it had ended with them doing the dance. I would have been much different to me. And that's sort of what
Really.
you're saying. In a way, that sounds like what you're saying about like the point has been made, which is like you understand the things he's wrestling with. So it's like you could end the movie with her getting this, declining the slippers from the custodian, which actually we'll talk about. I think that's a wonderful scene, by the way.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Like maybe even my favorite moment of the movie, actually.
Mm.
And then but it could have ended with that. It could have ended with them dancing. It could have ended with the janitor cleaning up after the dance. Any of these places, I didn't feel like any one of them was more like final or correct than the last.
Yeah. No, I actually totally agree with you, which is why
like Eternal Sunshine is a great example. When Eternal Sunshine ends, you're like, oh, that was perfect, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, I interrupted you.
I guess I didn't feel that sense of like a perfect ending in that I didn't really care. I guess I almost didn't care about the last scene, like at all. It felt like an epilogue to me, right? Like it felt like it was after the fact. Everything was after the fact. Yeah, I think you're right that I guess the ending, or the true ending in a sense, is him sweeping the the snow out of the gym after the dance sequence. Like that might be the true ending, or it might be before the dancing entirely, because I could have probably.
Wait, when you say the true ending, you mean like the ending of the narrative? I mean,
no, I just mean like in my mind the ending of the movie
that you like the most.
I guess, yeah, I guess, or that, where I stopped thinking of it, like I guess when the dance sequence happened, I basically stopped. Like the movie was concluded in my mind, essentially. Like I understood what the movie was about. I understood what the potentially what it was trying to say, and anything that it had to throw at me after that was basically, I don't want to say fluff, but it was basically icing on the cake, and so I didn't care about, like I enjoyed the dance sequence and I enjoyed the play sequence, but they didn't.
And the animated pig.
And the animated pig,
Let's
yes,
not forget.
as he's actually that might be the most important part of what the ending was for me, because he fully loses his grip on reality in that sequence.
Right.
He walks into the car and he sees the cartoon of whatever what is that dumb place called? Is it like Tulsi Town or something?
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
He sees the cartoon, and then he follows the pig down the hallway and it tells him, let's get dressed. And then basically there it could end with him fading into the blue sky, that's completely fine with me. It might even be, maybe you're right, maybe it's too much when he's on the stage, because it's basically, I guess it's kind of explaining the fragility of his mind, of his mental state. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
it might just be getting too much into it.
Well, I mean, the pig certainly makes that his fragility of mental state clear.
Right,
I think.
but the pig is leading him to, to up to heaven or whatever. Like the pig is,
right. Which I'm sure the pig Charlie Kaufman believes in.
The pig is his final thoughts, before he kicks the bucket, basically.
Yes.
So to me, that's fine. That's completely within the bounds of whatever else is happening in this movie, because of course he thinks of the pig that died by maggots eating him alive. Of course he thinks of that, because that's what he is. That's what he's going to be.
Yeah. Well, and look, I don't feel this way about it because it's depressing or anything. And I don't even feel like it's, I can't even like pin it down in the way that we're sort of talking about, which is like logically, or like, the information is conveyed or that sort of thing. It was just pure. It's just like, they're just things that they work for you and they don't,
Yeah.
Saoirse Ronan and her sisters gallivanting about and screaming does not work for me, but for some people it really does, and they love it, And it's not something like,
I guess this is kind of what I've been trying to talk with Isaac about. Is there are some movies that have an aesthetic, and the aesthetic either attracts you or it doesn't attract you, and that's okay. Like you could not be interested in that aesthetic, and that doesn't make you bad for not liking it.
Right.
Like I think that's what the three of us found out about Breathless, is that we're just not interested in that aesthetic of that movie.
Right. Except I a little bit like it, but not completely. In fact, actually, I like the aesthetic of it. I love the look of Breathless, but anyway. But that's the thing about this movie is I would say that 90% of it, I think I love the aesthetic, and not just visually, but like the atmosphere of this movie is something that really
is fantastic. Yeah.
To me, it evokes like kind of like old storybooks I would look at it as a child for some reason, which I don't know if that makes any sense, but this kind of weird, I don't know, it has a kind of a fable-like quality, and of course just the constant buffeting snow as they're driving through the car. Again, I just can imagine like just some nice person who is looking at Netflix for something to watch, and they see, oh, it's that nice kid from Breaking Bad. I should check this out. His first lead role, and then it's just like 40 minutes of just them talking about philosophy in a blizzard in a car. I mean, it's just like, so, I mean, it's like I enjoy most of it, but I just at a certain point I go like, I don't feel like he was getting at something at a certain point. And there are just certain things where I guess maybe the best way to put it is it feels like vagueness. It doesn't feel like there's a difference between vagueness and ambiguity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ambiguity is something that like the best David Lynch movies have and that sort of thing. But in this case, it felt more like it was just kind of it seems uncertain. I'm sure for him, it all pieces together perfectly and whatnot. Because I mean, it's very clear this is a movie done with not only final cut, but like absolutely no meddling. And it's more and more is something I'm sort of there's a tiny bit of me that's apprehensive about it, but mostly I appreciate, which is the Netflix thing of watching all these great directors go there and get complete freedom, because I feel like that's a thread I could bring through everything from this to The Irishman to The Five Bloods, which is I think a much lesser movie, to who's the other big person who made a movie? Okja, like all these movies.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting closest to like the pure expression of these people. And that I appreciate. But I do in some ways I feel.
Do you think that's like true though? I mean, I'm not sure about the back end of how Netflix operates, but I mean, do you think it really is true that they don't meddle in productions like this? I mean, I'm not sure. I have no idea.
I think so, because also another thing about this is a movie in 2020 and there's no like hallmarks of like trying to appeal to anything that they would try to even insert. You know what I mean? Like there's not any insert of kind of like, I don't know, political thing or diversity or any, like there's nothing. To me, it feels like he completely. Also, it's a longer movie. Like I'm pretty sure that's what they've all described, right? I mean, that's why Bong went there, and he was kind of one of the first ones actually, and certainly Scorsese had that kind of freedom.
I mean, I guess I hope that's true. Although part of me is maybe as reticent as you are, or I think we're on similar wavelengths there, because there is kind of a danger in just letting these people be completely free. You know what I mean? Like, there's some directors need an editor. Some directors or some writers need. Charlie Kaufman needs Spike Jonze, or
Gondry. Yeah, I mean, I think I did find I was thinking about Five Bloods also watching this, just because I was thinking like this is a person whose work I really love. I mean, not as much as Spike Lee, but someone I really appreciate, who I feel like there's a point of indulgence where it gets a little bit much. And I enjoyed this much more, but I had a similar feeling as I did watching Five Bloods for the first time. Because if you remember, the first time I watched Five Bloods, I actually decided I liked it quite a bit. But I sort of was like, I feel like it was like I was rooting for it more than it was actually successful. Right. And I feel like in this case also, there's just a certain point where I don't know, he needs to be reined in, or he needs to focus his ideas in a certain way, less his thematic ideas than just his cinematic ideas. But I don't know. Oh, what was the other thing I was gonna discuss about? I said we would table. Do you remember now?
I don't remember.
Oh, that's too bad. At least the only thing I can remember of what we wanted to talk about was that scene with the where she talks to the janitor.
Yeah.
Weirdly wonderful little moment. And it was sort of an interesting thing where it's like she's sort of recognizing that it's him, but not entirely. Does that make sense? Like, she doesn't explicitly say it's you, or she's not like It doesn't feel like he's explicitly aware.
Well, and at the same time,
The audience is aware.
You're sort of coming to grips with the fact that it's him as well. You know, like you've had hints of it before, and actually the biggest hint is when she pulls his uniform out of the laundry. Actually, I would say that's kind of the biggest the biggest moment where it kind of tips its hat. But
why did I not pick up on that? That's funny. The uniform thing went over my head. The weirdest thing though about that scene is like whatever feeling that evokes of like this sort of recognition of someone of meeting someone outside of time, you know, was the exact feeling I was trying to describe last night after a dream I had. And stop me if this is incredibly boring to you. But I woke up from this dream where the dream was I was in the same house, and from the hallway down where my grandparents used to sleep, my mother came out, but she looked also, I think she looked like Diane Keaton or something. My mom was young, basically. My mom was like a woman in her like 20s or 30s. And it was like this weird thing of, the only way I could describe it when I was writing this down was that it was like, I was a stranger to her, but somehow there was like a piece of recognition there. And I was trying to find, because I feel like there's another movie that has that, where they sort of, it's not Back to the Future. In a way, it almost is Avengers Endgame, which is funny to say, but that whole thing with his father, you know?
Yeah.
But the father never really picks up on it. Like
No.
I feel like there's another movie though where there's something.
I'm trying to think.
Like because that it's familiar, you know what I mean? Like that feeling in a film of a parent who's seeing their child and they don't really know, but they sort of do know.
I don't know, because I maybe not the stuff. Maybe in Back to the Future, not the stuff with the mom, but maybe more so the stuff with the dad.
I don't know. It's. I don't think that was the one for me. I mean, I'm not sure if at the end of the movie when he leaves, they sort of have this kind of feeling that. They
do. They do.
That's the one. I gotta watch that movie again. That's a wonderful.
They do have a scene where they're like, like they both almost put it together. Yeah.
Right.
And I think they say something like, "He's what a nice boy." I think they say almost like, something like when I have a kid, I want him to be like Marty, you know, like something like.
I don't know if it's that explicit, but yeah, something of that regard. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it's not that movie, but that's definitely an example of it. And another example, actually, that is not entirely similar, but I don't think is the one. But oddly, and for what the movie is I think actually a really beautiful evocation of this is Harry Potter. Is the whole thing with the mirror. I think is actually I was thinking about that last night after I had this dream. I was like, wow, that's really like kind of like beautifully done. Yeah. Maybe even more so than the book, because in the book, like it's his whole family, and also in writing, it's more literal. You know, you're spelling out Harry's emotions and all these sort of things. But to see us in this film, and this is just a film. This is Chris Columbus' film, isn't it? This is not like some great poetic art or anything.
Yeah.
But like the way he does that whole sequence is really beautiful.
Oh, you know, I guess it could be It's a Wonderful Life as well. Because there's sort of the revelation that he's not he's not with the wife. You know, there's the revelation that he's not around.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, I don't know. Again, when you have these dreams, you never know how much when you're remembering it is correct because it's so hazy.
Yeah, that's true.
But to me, it had this feeling. I mean, I had this feeling where I was, you know, and then my grandma called me down to help her get to the bathroom, and as I was like, you know, waiting outside the bathroom, I was like getting choked up thinking about this, you know, and I just saw my mom. You know, I'm not like broken up about my mother, but you know, and she's not dead, but it is this weird. It's a weird feeling of when it's this sort of combination of closeness and distance. And the point I'm arriving at is that weirdly, this movie captured that, even though, except it's not parent child, it captured that feeling in that scene with the slippers, at least to me. I thought that was sort of, it was weird how closely that feeling was evoked. Yes.
I think that's all.